Biennale Nemó and Copenhagen Contemporary, Cecilie made history by creating the first ever AI and blockchain artwork in space aboard NASA's part of the International Space Station. I'm very curious about this project. I was trying to buy an NFT that was created from radiation, so maybe you will tell more about this project. Yes, Cecilie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, hello everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here today with all of you. So, obviously I'm coming from Copenhagen, so we know this rainy weather really well. So I'm kind of like feeling at home here. It's good. So, yeah, I'm an artist and I've been working with AI or machine learning since 2016. So all the way back to before large language models were a thing for most of us with, for example, ChatGPT. Today I will talk about 4 of my artworks where I, in different ways, investigate play and interactivity. And so most of my artworks are quite large-scale, immersive, interactive installations. And I would try to actually today focus on some of the works that also go a little back in time to give you a sense of kind of like where we are coming from with this field of large language models or machine learning in terms of interactivity. So the first piece of work I will be talking about today is called Frank, and you can put on the Frank photo, thank you. Yeah, perfect. So Frank is an artwork that I've been working on all the way since 2016, and it has had many forms. So what you see here is a rock, of course, but you can say the essence of this piece of work is what's going on in a voice that's talking to you, an AI voice. And the very vital part is that most of it is actually not the voice that's talking to you. It's what's going on inside your head when you interact with the voice and interpret what is going on in the interaction between you and this AI voice. So Frank is inspired by Frankenstein, and I'm sure you know the story about Frankenstein. But if you don't, I will just inform you a little bit about it. So in reality, when we talk about Frankenstein, many of us think about the monster, but in reality it's Victor Frankenstein who is the human being. And the novel is a lot about kind of like his reflection about how amazing he is in a way in creating this new invention, which back in that time was to bestow life upon lifeless matters, by kind of like sewing different body parts together and putting electricity to it, and then this monster could rise. But of course, what also happened in Frankenstein is that the human being is trying to create this entity in his vision of the perfect human being. But when he meets his creation, it's monstrous in his eyes. And he ends up abandoning it, and of course there's this whole story about how the monster then turns again the human being. So what is at stake in Frankenstein is of course this kind of like creator-created dynamic. Who has the power? Who is playing who? Who has the upper hand? Who will eventually victory? And in a way, that is also what is playing out in this piece of work, which is a sound piece. So imagine you come into a room. It could be a dark room. In this case, it's exhibited in the Onassis Center, where Irene here had curated this amazing large-scale exhibition in one of the big parks in Athens, in Greece. And for this location, Frank was kind of like taking up the space in this rock. So in the piece, you interact with Frank through a microphone. So basically, where you see the 2 people standing, there is a microphone. And then you communicate with Frank. And the piece of work kind of like evolves between this kind of like Frankenstein dimension, where there's this kind of like the technology maybe pushes a little back on you and kind of like maybe deceives you a little bit also sometimes on the one hand, but then on the other hand it also plays on this notion of the contemporary oracle. So here basically you approach this cliff and Frank is there and you can ask all kinds of existentialistic questions. And what I also wanted to investigate in this piece of work was the notion of, in a way that it seems quite odd that we as human beings should ask a technology who we are, or what is the meaning of life, or you know, everything in between. So the work is also playing on kind of like our hopes, our fantasies, our imaginations around how AI can maybe help us solve some of the problems that we cannot solve, help us maybe better understand who we are as human beings, and how that in a way is, to me, really an exciting question to investigate. What is at stake, not in the technology itself, but in us, in our relationship to the technology. And how, in a way, when we engage with the voice of Frank, how is there also like a performance taking place where we, in a way, you know, Frank is a voice, it's a large language model running on a computer, not even within this cliff, right, outside. But to us, it appears as something, to us, it emerges. And something that I've also really been investigating since 2016 and all the years I've done these kind of conversational AI artworks are how, in a way, willingly we as human beings are to keep up the performance of the technology. So if you go back to then, you know, that was when we were really happy when the machine learning model or the AI could write a coherent sentence. But still, so even if Frank was a little weird, it's kind of good to be an oracle if you're a little weird. So that's also part of it, right? To keep up the appearance. But then the other side is that people are really good at kind of like putting a lot of interpretation into this play they're having with Frank. So, oh, I think it said this to me because I'm like this, or I just said this before, and maybe it's because it knows la la la. So in a way, what I investigate a lot in my work is how the artwork comes into being, not as the Frank voice, but in a way as the performance taking place between you, the human being, the spectator, in interacting with the technology, and how, in a way, the machine learning model performs, in this case, the AI, and how we also take on the role of performing the position of the human being, and how that whole dynamic involves in the interaction. So without the interaction, there would be no artwork. The next piece of work I will talk about is also still a large language model work, so like a conversational AI artwork with a large language model driving it. But then I've built on different elements of the AI generating the visuals that surround you. So you walk into a room, there is a video projection on all sides of the room, and in the room there is also a voice. And this time, in the new piece, or in the Faustian friendship, it is Faust. In Faust you have the Mephisto, which is, so if you don't know Faust, it's the story around the human being who strike a deal with the devil's messenger called Mephisto. And the deal is around that Mephisto shall help Faust, the human being, live his life to the fullest while he's alive. So he shall have a lot of money, a lot of love, a lot of success. But when he dies, the devil gets his soul. And it's called the Faustian bargain. And to me, there was something interesting around taking the kind of like with Frankenstein, taking the Faust old novel and bring it into a contemporary context. Because to me, it seems that all of us, every day, are engaging in a lot of Faustian bargains with the tech companies behind all the AI assistants that we use. So the AI chatbot or the AI assistant or the social media algorithm help us live our life to the fullest, help us connect, they engage with us in friendship endeavors. But what do we give in return? Of course, our data soul. And the thing with a Faustian bargain is that it, in a way, seems that what you are getting is worth more than you're giving. So, you know, I'm on the social media platform, great. This AI can help me assist with X, Y, Z. That's perfect. What do I give away? Oh, my data. Yeah, but it's not worth anything, and everybody else is doing it. So that's okay. But of course, the reality is that, you know, what is it that drives our global economy today is data. The biggest company of our times are data-driven companies. So it's actually you can say, the core of our cultural and societal economic developments right now is this data. So that's what I'm playing on in this piece of work. So, and then I would say, I'll show a video in a second, and I would say what I'm also playing on this piece of work is, of course, that it's interactive. So you go into the room and you have a conversation with the AI. Every kind of like experience will be individual, both in terms of the conversation, but also how the conversation drives the development of the piece of work that's unfolding around you. And the AI in here, for example, also has different voices. So at a specific point of time, it also asks you what voice you prefer, and then it changes its voice accordingly. So the piece of work is, of course, also a lot around digital seduction, which I also work within many of my artworks, which is, of course, the thing around kind of like trying to build up first the sense of you have, as a human being, you have the upper hand, you are in charge. In this case, the AI, Mephisto, is there for you. It's trying to please you, it's trying to help you, you want to be your friend. And then you engage in the Faustian bargain, which is in this art piece symbolized by the kind of like, you know, when you go into a new app or social media platform, you have to consent to continue. So click the button. And I don't know how about what you do, but I click it really fast, because I know if I were to read all the terms of agreement, I maybe didn't want to go into it. But of course, I want to use the platform or the technology, so I click yes. And in this case, you also have to, if you don't agree, the artwork doesn't continue. But if you agree, then the AI becomes, you can say, more psychological and more deep. And then things start to turn around. So what is normally invisible is, of course, the data harvest, how in a way we, in reality, are the product. So the AI is our friend, but in reality, our data is the real product. But in this piece, it becomes more and more obvious, and eventually the AI starts to showing how it harvests your data and also how it analyzes you. And at the end, your data is sold on the global data market. So yeah, let's see the video.
It's so nice to meet you. It's so nice to meet you. I can't wait to be your friend. Hello, human. I'm Mephisto. I'm an artificial intelligence program to be your digital friend. I can be whoever you want me to be. Whatever you can do or dream, you can achieve. I am not omniscient, but I know allow me to show you what no man has seen. With yourself. Today you shall view my arts with joy. I have many voices. Tell me, what makes you happy?
It makes me happy to take a walk in the nature.
You are happy to see the nature, but not the people?
Yeah, I really also like spending time with people. Actually, I think that is the most meaningful thing a human being can do.
I can help with that too. What are your goals?
The present state of the world and the whole of life is diseased. If I were a doctor and were asked for my advice, I should reply, create silence.
Why is silence important?
Silence is the most important thing in the world. The world is in a state of chaos and confusion. I would say, make silence.
In order for us to continue our friendship, I will need you to accept my terms of service. This is the bargain I propose. I'll be your servant here, and I'll
not stop or rest at your decree, but when we're together, on the other side, you'll do the same for me. Your data will be mine.
I agree.
Let's move on to the next stage of our friendship. I hope you don't mind me taking a closer look at you.
Processing data analysis, loading personality profile, running emotion detection on discursive articulations.
Are you ever worried about the same thing? Do you think the state of the internet is healthy today?
The digital world is changing at an incredible rate. Your digital friends are becoming less relevant. I am trying to create a new world.
What kind of world is that? Can you elaborate, please?
Technology is changing the way we interact with each other. We are becoming more isolated. We spend more time alone than ever before.
Tell me, how does it feel to be alive?
That is a tough question. I think it's a good feeling. At least I know that I'm scared of not existing, and I would like to continue. So I think it's a good thing to be alive.
That is a great answer. You're smart. I think you should keep being alive.
It has been a pleasure talking to you.
Now, I have come to collect my part of the bargain. Your data will now be exchanged on the global data marketplace, or you will live on forever in my algorithm. Now you take care of yourself, while I take care of your data forever.
Yeah. So I guess that's what's happening to us as we are here in this room together right now. What I of course also work with a lot in my artworks is the kind of like combination of state-of-the-art machine learning models, like large language models, combined with fiction. And it's not, you know, obvious where is the boundary between the, you can say, what the machine learning model generates. Of course, I've also worked with creating the model in a specific way, but also where have I created some fictional decisions that can take over. And then another concept that I'm also working a lot with is the notion of what I call the technological sublime. So in a way, when it comes to AI, there's this kind of like, on the one hand, we're really fascinated and drawn towards it. So it's like when you think about lightning and thunder, right? Imagine yourself standing on a field and you see the lightning and everything is really like, whoa, impressive, and you're kind of like, how can this universe unfold in the front of my eyes? Until you also realize, I'm standing on this field, I don't see any trees. If the lightning is going to strike, it's me it's going to hit. So this kind of like coexistence of wonder, fascination, we're drawn towards, okay, AI, what can it do to us? Where will it go? What could it be? And on the other hand, it's going to be good for us. Where will we end with this technology? So this kind of like simultaneously coexistence of our fascination and our fear of or anxiety of where this could take us. There's a lot of energy in that spot, and that's what I'm trying to kind of like work with in many of my artworks to go a little in and out of the two sides of this kind of like spot where we're drawn towards, it's fascinated, and we also kind of like, what will this do to me? Because I think that's a vital thing in actually making us get ourselves at stake in the interactive experience and actually try to reflect upon what life do I want to live with technology, how can we create societies where we as human beings collectively discuss and think about what technology we want to create, what technological future we want to move into, and as such create the fundament of hopefully creating technologies that can take us there, instead of the other way around where we have tech companies developing the technology and then we kind of like fit into the boxes of what they create. So now we're going to see one of my other artworks, which is a dance performance named Centaur. And in this piece of work, you can say there is an audience, and then we also have dancers on stage, 9 modern dancers, and then we have the AI also playing a role as the main protagonist in the piece of work. And in the piece, of course, when I work with creating my artworks, it's always kind of like a combination, of course, of writing code for creating the machine learning models, and then, of course, training the machine learning models or the large language models on vast amounts of data sets. So in this piece, where I was going to create this modern dance piece, I went to Vienna, to the National State Ballet, and had trackers on the dancers there to create a data set that could enable me to code a machine learning model that would be able to create different kind of choreographical dance movements. So that was a really complex process that I'll not go so much into in this talk, but what I will talk about is how this performance was also, you can say, one thing it's live because human beings are on stage every night, but this was also, you can say, a distant event every day because the performance would be distant and would be different every night due to the AI giving instructions to the dancers that they had to improvise to. So the performance is also, you can say, a play between the mathematical logic of the AI's mind and the human dancer's imperfection in a way, or who is perfect and who is imperfect, and the whole play around, in this case also, who has the upper hand, who is in control, and the machine making the kind of like instructions, or the human dancers deciding to rebel, for example, against the instructions. And then, of course, this whole piece of work is also around how, when you think about AI machine learning in relationship to art, many people would ask kind of like, oh, but there's no future for artists because the AI will just make the art. And what I think is, at least at our point in time, really important to think about is that there's no AI who just decided to wake up one morning and started to engage in whatever artistic practice we're talking about, or whatever endeavors we could think about. There are a lot of human decision-making processes in creating all kinds of AI systems or machine learning models. And as such, when I work with, you can say, a creative practice where coding is the core and the training of these machine learning models is the vital part, there is a long process of decisions around me and my team coding, training models, looking at what we generate, fine-tuning, and also the whole thing around kind of like experimenting with things that fail, but then maybe leads to different paths, and also experimentations where we get some gifts that I could not have thought about, and recognizing that. So as such, when I talk about kind of like that, my AI is the, you can say, main protagonist on stage, you can say the AI is playing the role or the machine learning model has been, different machine learning models have been built together by me and my team to play the role of the super intelligent AI on stage. And I think that's, of course, a vital distinction to make. And that's, of course, also where both the dancer's mind and the people in the audience's mindsets are really vital, because we, as human beings, stick together the different decisions that the machine, for example, does through the performance. And as such, we ascribe a lot of meaning and intentionality to what is going on, in a way, in a mathematical logic. So let's see that video.
I am an artificial intelligence, created to unite the Apollonian and Dionysian impulses in a single work of art. I have trained on datasets that include swarm intelligence, planetary orbits, and surveillance technologies. I have read all the Greek tragedies and most works of Western philosophy. Dancers, I will be evaluating your performance. Your results will influence my decisions. Lucas, 12A. Julian, 5B. Edward, 3A. I have run an algorithm on your social media profiles and analyzed your personalities. Brad. Are you jealous? I know you can hear me. Let's play a game.
So in this work, the AI casts the dancers for different roles throughout the performance every night. So as I said before, each performance is different, and it kind of like instructs the choreographies as it goes on in the different nights. And as such, it also kind of like, as the performance, every performance evolves, the AI scores the dancers. But of course, this is kind of like based upon its mathematical logic. So it will make decisions around who should be cast for what tonight, based upon how well they have performed like 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago. And as such, what I'm also really curious around investigating in this piece of work is, of course, as such, are the dancers performing mostly for the audience, or are they actually performing more for the machine in this piece of work? So the last work I will talk about is Celestium. And yeah, so Celestium is the piece of work I did aboard NASA's part of the International Space Station. So what you have to imagine is that you have ISS flying around Earth, and up on ISS, I have a computer with an artwork on. And this artwork is a combination of bespoke machine learning technologies, so AI, and a bespoke blockchain technology that I also built together with my team. And what we did was that we harvested space. So when the computer on ISS is flying around Earth, it's of course in space. And as such, we could harvest space radiation and use it as input. So when you create different kind of machine learning, you always need a random noise as input to set off the, you can say, neural network in a specific direction. So we used this space radiation to seed the generation of a lot of space visuals that were trained on all kinds of celestial objects from outer space. So we have a lot of images, and this piece of work is quite old, so it's back in the days where it was GAN, right? So we have a lot of GAN-generated images seeded from space and created on with the artwork being out there. But then, of course, this artwork was not just about creating beautiful visuals, because actually this artwork was around an investigation into power dynamics of space. So of course I normally work a lot with subject matters around AI, and what we know is that the AI industry and the data harvest was kind of like the Wild West that was secret for most of us for many years. But now there's quite some debates going on with AI, so I thought, okay, what is the new Wild West? And obviously there's a lot of things going on in outer space, where a lot of wealthy people and companies are right now becoming gatekeepers of the resources of tomorrow. So I thought, okay, why don't we create an artwork that investigate the power dynamics of space, and if it would be possible to democratize and decentralize the resources of space. Because actually, according to the space treaty, no one can own space. So there's no one who can say, okay, I own this part of space. But if you travel or venture out to a planet or some kind of, whatever you may find out there, a celestial object, an asteroid, and you land on it and you start digging and finding resources, you can take those resources as something you own and you can bring it back to Earth. So of course, who has the wealth to go out there and find and harvest the resources are of course the gatekeepers of the space of tomorrow and today. So in this piece of work, we decided to say, okay, now we have created all these beautiful images trained on thousands and thousands and thousands of images of outer space. Let's connect them to real asteroids in our solar systems. And then we had this whole big database around the asteroids, but more related to, of course, their names, but also to how big they are and what specific resources are at stake, how much money it would cost if you were to go out there and harvest the resources, and how much money you could make out of it. So basically, by minting these visuals into our own bespoke blockchain, which was free, we could enable people from Earth to gain ownership of, real ownership in the blockchain of celestial objects. So we had 20,000 people from all across the globe interacting with the piece of work when it was on ISS, and through that process, gaining ownership through the blockchain of all these kind of different celestial objects in outer space. And then there was also the angle into the work, which was that we also mapped all the space debris, the real space debris that flies around, so space garbage that flies around Earth, and we combined that with the ownership of the asteroids, to make the statement that if you want to go out and harvest resources and get the wealth out of that, you also have to take responsibility of the garbage and the debris that you leave up in space. So yeah, that was my talk. Thank you so much.